I am with the California Sharps Coalition. I am here in the stead of Laura Sim, who is the chair of the organization. The California Sharps Coalition, as you can see on the slide, was founded in 2001 as the Alameda County Sharps Coalition, something that was an initiative begun by Supervisor Keith Carson. The focusing event that I think started interest in the coalition was a constituent of Supervisor Carson purchased a home where the previous owner was a diabetic that had drilled a hole in the wall, drilled a hole in the drywall between, and was putting the sharps into the space between the drywall panels. And so when the new homeowner remodeled, hundreds of sharps that had accumulated over the years came tumbling out. The question was, what do we do with these? Who's responsible? The constituent came to the supervisor, and after doing some investigating, they had no idea what to do with the sharps, and that's how the coalition was born. We are now a statewide organization, a diverse membership of businesses, community groups, nonprofit organizations, and governments. Together we promote public awareness and solutions for safe disposal of needles, syringes, and other sharps in the community. One of the nonprofit organizations is the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, of which I am the delegate from the MS Society to the Sharps Coalition. A little bit about my personal story. I'm a person with MS. For 6 years, I self-injected at home a drug that produced a pre-filled syringe every day that accumulated into several roughly 6-quart Sharps containers full of needles. That was roughly a $50 trip to the household hazardous waste facility. So it's something that for me was not a problem, because I like to consider myself a conscientious citizen that would not throw away sharps, but still I can easily understand how somebody, especially somebody who is suffering from advanced stages of a disease like diabetes or MS, would be not as similarly inclined to be a responsible consumer. Where's the mouse?
It hides. It hides. The mouse hides in its little.
Where's the next slide button?
Just click the top right. On the mouse, there's 2 upper buttons, and you just click the one. Top right. Yeah.
Top right.
Oh, it's not clicking.
Here. Let's just, this is easy. This is an easy way to do it. That out. Just do this right here. Oh, what? This isn't. Is this?
1 to 6. Do the down.
Okay. Well, this is not a PowerPoint, right? Okay.
That's the one.
Excellent. Just some statistics about sharps usage. I don't want to reiterate too much what we've already talked about this morning and afternoon. Some of the key numbers: 3% of the population we estimate is a self-injector. In California, we estimate that's 486,000 individuals, roughly the size of a state assembly district. We estimate that more than 90% of the sharps used in the home are not disposed of properly, or disposed of in the trash, which is some of the earlier estimates, I think, out of San Luis Obispo or Santa Cruz County. They estimated that they would get 17% recovered through enhanced collection measures. So we think that the problem is that some of the estimates of how many sharps go into the trash is on the high side. Let's see if I can do this again here. Excellent. So I'm here as a consumer representative, as basically an end user of the sharps that are produced by the pharmaceutical industry. That's my connection with the coalition. And our vehicle for doing anything about the problem is something that we were actually requested to do by Senator Joe Simitian of Santa Clara County, who authored Senate Bill 486, which we've talked about before. Senate Bill 486 is, well, the Senate Bill 486 as passed is a watered-down version of what it could have been. It is basically what you could call a disclosure mandate. That's all it mandates, is disclosure, disclosing what the pharmaceutical companies are doing to support the safe collection and disposal of home-generated sharps. Now, the key word that got into Senate Bill 486 is what, if anything, you are doing to support the safe collection and disposal of home-generated sharps. It's the what, if anything, that really waters down the bill. But nonetheless, we have this requirement that pharmaceutical companies submit plans every year to the state that shows what they are doing to support the safe collection and disposal of home-generated sharps. What, if anything? So we have this mandate to create all these reports, submit them to the state, and then what? There's no stick, there's no penalty, there's no enforcement that goes along with this requirement in law. So the question is, what do you do with the information? What do you do with all these plans that are created? At Senator Simitian's request, the California Sharps Coalition has agreed to review the plans and grade them. Say this is a good plan that this pharmaceutical company created and this is a bad plan, etc., so that word would get out and theoretically through the power of information sharing, change would happen. So the first step was to basically decide what makes a good plan, what makes a bad plan. So the imprint that our coalition had on this process was to create criteria for grading the Sharps plans submitted by the manufacturers. So unfortunately, I don't have a slide that shows what the criteria are, but as a coalition of end users and government agencies, we decided that the most important criteria for grading a Sharps plan, and I'll just call them Sharps plans, or SB 486 plans, the most important criteria for grading them was whether or not the plan actually showed actual provision of services at no cost to the end user. So we gave that an 80%. 80% of the total grade that you could get was basically answering the question, do you provide to the end user at no cost? So you could get a B. You could get a B simply by providing a service to the Sharps user that at no cost takes back or otherwise supports the safe disposal. Again, it's very broad. A lot of flexibility was given to the, let me push in the drawer here, was given to the manufacturers to show different ways that they do support the safe disposal and collection of Sharps. Another 10% of the grade is, do you inform the consumer that, among other things, it's illegal to dispose of Sharps in the trash? Do you make it in easy to understand language in your prescribing material? And that's 10% of our grade. Another 5% is, do you coordinate with organizations that are also involved in the safe collection and disposal of Sharps? And another 5% grading points would go to, do you involve the consumer in making decisions for the company as far as how you develop these plans to support the safe collection and disposal of Sharps. So, how did they do? We got 22 plans in 2010 from the state, or for the state. The state collected 22 plans from manufacturers that show how they support the collection of Sharps. And once I figure out how to advance the slide again,
Down arrow, down arrow.
there we go. Plans are at the bottom. Quick math, out of the 22 plans, 68% of them, or 15, got an F. So that's roughly 2/3 of the manufacturers basically are fundamentally not complying with the law of showing that they're doing anything. They fail. Another 9% got Ds. Another 13% got Cs. There were no Bs. and 9%, 2 plans, got an A. Now what we're seeing from this initial haul of plans for 2010 was largely a restatement of company policy about collection of sharps that didn't translate into any specific action that the company was taking, saying this is our plan, we support the collection of sharps. End of story. So what, if anything, are you doing? Well, we've done this plan, so therefore we wrote a plan. Right. You can see where we're going with this. So that was the 2010 results. We have received and graded the 2011 results, and we are working with Senator Simitian on a schedule to release them to the public and go from there. So our conclusion, the policy inference that you can take from these grades below is that voluntary compliance with the law isn't working. It's not producing measurable results. You have some plans, some manufacturers that, quite frankly, blew off the opportunity. And one thing I might add is, at one point, or at various points, the coalition had asked or invited manufacturers to come to us and say, let's work something out. Let's work out a plan that gets a good grade. Generally, the response was 0. I can't speak for Laura and the entire coalition, but I believe we had fundamentally no interest in pharmaceutical companies coming to us and saying, I want to get a good grade, what can I do? So we didn't have any of that. So our conclusion is that the voluntary approach isn't working, is not producing any good results. So what are the next steps? Well, we have ongoing discussions with Senator Simitian, who has introduced Senate Bill 419. That's a starting point. SB 419 basically requires that the plans be in electronic format that are easy to use. A lot of plans were simply scanned and not searchable. They were not put into text form. So this would basically require that the plans be in electronic format. That's a good start. The question is, well, this is kind of tricky, because what the senator does is the senator's prerogative when we don't know what kind of bills he's going to introduce. There is a possibility that this year, being the second year in a 2-year legislative session, we'll see an extended producer responsibility bill or some kind of mandate on the pharmaceutical industry to do something on sharps that are more substantive than creating a plan that might do nothing. But we don't know what the senator is going to do. That's an ongoing discussion that we're having. Look at Senate Bill 419. It may or may not be amended at this point. It is a Senate bill that has gone out of the Senate into the Assembly, where it is currently an inactive bill. But it could be amended. They don't share this kind of thing with me. As far as other next steps, we are looking to continue the growth of our organization. We do support the concept of extended producer responsibility. We are not the source of all definitive ideas, but we are looking to promote the dialogue on the issue and to share ideas with other advocates, both at home, across the state, and nationally. So, with that said, I am here to recruit members for the California Sharps Coalition. So if you are interested in becoming a member of the Sharps Coalition, we are a broad-based organization representing, I guess you could say, the public interest end of the Sharps question. Both the taxpayer-funded agencies, that have to solve the waste disposal problem, and the consumer organizations like the Multiple Sclerosis Society, the Diabetes Association, the diabetes educators that work with people that are also bearing the cost of improper sharps disposal. I don't need to tell you that this is a problem, and we are hopefully going to be involved in coming up with solutions, and I think that this is a good jumping off point for, first I'll take questions of course, but this is a good jumping off point for the facilitated discussion on where we go next.
Great. Are there any questions for Tom?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, but hang on. I'm sorry. We got lapel. Just repeat the question. Yeah.
The question was, what did the A's on the report card get? That was generally a mail-back program. I can't speak for the two companies. I'd have to go back and look at the plans. The plans that we liked were Sharp's mail-back programs, where the customer was given a box, given a proper container, and the postage paid to send it back. Now, one thing I might add, I also don't know what kind of drug they used. Now, a daily injection versus a weekly or monthly injection would produce different cost burdens. So obviously, if you are a daily injector, it's a different cost than an injector of less often.